Hi there. I'm Katherine Jelinek with the Skinny Platform, and today I am thrilled to interview Cary Chessick. Cary is not only the author of Pitch Before Product, he is also a renowned figure in the entrepreneurial landscape, celebrated for his innovative leadership and strategic vision. As the former president and CEO of Restaurant.com, Cary revolutionized the online advertising space for restaurants and created an e-commerce driven savings platform that benefited both customers and merchants. Under his guidance, Restaurant.com expanded remarkably, growing from a nascent startup to a thriving enterprise with over 18,000 participating clients. Cary's entrepreneurial prowess has been recognized with numerous accolades. He was honored as Ernst & Young's Midwest Entrepreneur of the Year in the technology category and was a finalist in the American Business Awards for Executive of the Year. His influential leadership earned him a place in University of Illinois at Chicago's Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame. Under his tenure, Restaurant.com was not only recognized as one of Chicago's top workplaces by the Chicago Tribune, but it was also secured as a spot on the prestigious Inc. 500/5000 list, ranking as number 767 among the fastest growing companies in America. A recipient of the College of Business Honorary Alumnus Award from Northern Illinois University, Cary's achievements extend beyond business leadership. He and a team won a Gold Stevie Award for the most viral marketing campaign of the year for his innovative and philanthropic Feed It Forward initiative. Now, as an executive coach, Cary applies his extensive experience to mentoring and guiding CEOs and other leaders in sales, marketing, and execution. His hands-on approach is evidenced by his active participation in over 10,000 one-on-one coaching sessions, through which he has significantly impacted the growth trajectories of many professionals and companies. Cary's investment in and mentorship of entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs reflects his commitment to fostering growth and excellence in the business world. His educational background, including a psychology degree from the University of Illinois and a JD from DePaul College of Law, and a 2-year teaching certificate in emotional intelligence from UIUC, underpins his holistic and insightful approach to business and leadership. Cary has a passion for positively impacting lives through his coaching practice. Looking forward to welcoming Cary Chessick. Hello, good morning to Cary Chessick. How are you?
Good morning to you. I'm doing really well. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for
Excellent.
joining us for this.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's great to be here.
So diving right in, you are the author of Pitch Before Product, and this is a methodology that you've been using, even obviously before this book. It's significantly predated the book. But my first question is, so why did you write this book?
Oh, I thought it was just a nice way to share my experiences with entrepreneurs, CEOs, sales and marketing leaders, people that are considering entrepreneurship, uh, in a nice, succinct, short, easy lunchtime read.
Yes, and it is. And so you've essentially answered my second question, but it is who should read this book? Who is this book for?
Yeah, that's the group. I mean, if you're running a company, regardless of stage or size, if you're running a business that sells products or services, if you run sales and marketing, you want to be an entrepreneur, you're a startup, and not sure if you have product market fit, it's a great way to implement some common sense, easy tactics that may help you accelerate the growth.
Wonderful. So tell us, like in general, what is this skinny about? And the skinny is obviously our title for this short book that you've written.
Well, the book is about three specific methodologies that I have learned over the many years that I've been in business, that when combined, help companies grow.
Can you list what those three methodologies are and a little bit about
Yeah,
each?
I
Mhm.
sure. And I can tell you the origin story where it all began. But
Yeah.
the 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 book itself and the three methodologies, I've let's say coined three phrases for what they are, but I can explain to you what they mean.
Hmm.
The first is pitch before product. The second is the sales and marketing pendulum, and the third is what I call stack ranking revenue. In the shortest version, pitch before product means uh, what are the words and images that you have to say to your prospect to close the deal today,
Hmm.
and then work backwards and hope there's some resemblance to what you actually do as a company. Uh, the sales and marketing pendulum, in its simplest format, is just a system, a process for sharing data between sales and marketing organizations to help drive leads and shorten the sales cycle and close deals faster.
Hmm.
Stack ranking revenue, in its simplest form, is making sure all the people on the team are doing the activities, working on the goals and the tasks that will generate the most revenue in the shortest period of time first before working on other things.
Right. And so this book brings those three things together in a leadership fable featuring our star, Sam. And so just tell us a little more about why you chose to write a leadership fable to bring these three concepts together in one book.
Well, I didn't know I was going to write a leadership fable. I, uh, but in my own mind, some of the books that I enjoyed the most had like a action movie start to them,
Mm.
where wow, those first, like 3 minutes of the action movie, you're on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I just I wanted an opening that wouldn't put people to sleep. That was really it. And so I just started, getting after it, and that's how it started. And
Mm.
I've been told many authors it's one page at a time, and that's how the first page started. And so I kept it going.
That's wonderful. And Sam's journey begins where he's an attorney. And I was looking at your background, and your the beginning of your career was in law. So can you tell me a little bit more about like the synergies between Sam's path and your path, and how much is it?
Well, Sam's a fake character,
Yes.
so
The star of our leadership fable.
yeah, exactly. But I can tell you. Uh, Here, let me share one experience,
Yeah.
uh, and why it's irrelevant. I was a trial attorney. That was my first career, and uh, we had this we had this case. It took about 5 years to get to trial.
Mm.
Uh, we really thought we were gonna win this one. We really thought we had it like on lockdown, and uh, our closing argument, the trial went for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and we got through our closing argument, and I'm sitting there thinking like this is a definite win, and then the other counsel stands up, and within 20 minutes of that closing statement, I literally like slump back in my chair,
Mm.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, they won. I literally believe that closing argument. I'm convinced. And what was so amazing about that situation. And I didn't know this because I didn't know I was going to be an entrepreneur. In business, we all have competitors, and we compete on price and service and product differentiation and all those things. In the courtroom, we literally have the exact same set of facts. And literally the other attorney just stitched them together in a different way that was just way more compelling and
Hmm.
convincing and captivating. And wow, the art that just left a mark in a good way, not at the time, but in a good way, that the art of persuasion can have a tremendous impact. So the words that you say, the order that you say them, the emphasis that you put on them can have a dramatic impact on the outcome. So that that lesson stuck with me.
Yes, for several decades and leading into a book and a
Yes,
methodology.
and a methodology, and a methodology, and that kind of the lessons learned there are a portion of the processes that I implement when I'm coaching clients
Hmm.
on pillar number one, which is pitch before product, which
Hmm.
also has other roots beyond beyond that one experience.
Right.
It has other roots, which I can share with you.
I would love to hear them. But I'm kind of excited as a reader. I read your book. Your book is coming out on May 6th. And it's kind of exciting to hear that indeed that was a lived experience, the one that you begin the book with, where Sam's in the courtroom and he hears the other attorney make their closing arguments and he knows he lost and he's overcome by the power of persuasion. So it's really cool to get to hear that background story, and the reality behind it. I really appreciate getting that one.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Sam's not a real character, but uh, um, certainly, certainly, I lived through an experience like that.
And so to just quickly follow up, Sam in the journey, the next part of his journey that's recorded in the book is that he tries to start his first company and it fails. So is that it, where is that? Is that something that happened for you as well, where your first entrepreneurial foray was um, something that was not successful, or where? Let me know.
Well, yeah. My first company was called Restaurant.com,
Yeah.
and the original idea, uh, let me, without getting into all the details behind it, uh, there was an original idea. We raised a bunch of money. We hired engineers. We built a product and a suite of services. Went to market. Nobody would buy it. Uh, Went back to the drawing board. Uh, Raised more money and built a completely different product, a different suite of services, and wasn't scalable. Uh, by this time, I would say we were unfundable, meaning really investors were not too interested in giving us a third try. And what ultimately happened, I think that the real key, we couldn't change the product, uh, but I really did not. It wasn't in my DNA to be a lawyer. I didn't want to go back and be a lawyer. What we could change was the pitch. And so by changing the pitch, it really resonated and ultimately helped us scale up to 18,000 clients. And so now think about this as the way companies start and the way entrepreneurs and even lean startup, what they teach us. Entrepreneurs, we come up with an idea or we want to solve a problem. We see an opportunity in the marketplace. We decide we're going to start a company. We build out a product or a service. We go to market. We hope somebody will buy it. And Lean Startup says, do that exact same thing, just do it faster. And what pitch before product is, regardless of the stage of the company, regardless of if you have a product or a service that you're selling, start at the end. Start with the script. What is the script that will close deals today? What is the script that will be so compelling and convincing and captivating that the buyer will buy today? And then work backwards and say, now, does that have some resemblance to what we actually sell? It should, of course, but go out into market and test that compelling pitch and see what the feedback is that you get from the market. Write out your top 3 objections and the best answers you can think of, and test the market. Write out the top 3 frequently asked questions and test the market. And what you're essentially doing is you're inviting the prospect into this brainstorm session with you as to whether you have product market fit, whether people want to do business with you. And because we as entrepreneurs, we sit around a room and we sit with our teams and we say, hey, we should add this feature, and we should add this feature, and we should add this feature. Wouldn't it be great if the future customer, was sitting in the room with us and helping us brainstorm? And that's really what pitch before product is. Go write out the script, write out the objections, write out the FAQs, and get after it. Go start talking to people and see if they'll buy. And use the words that come out of their mouth to help you optimize not only the sales pitch, the sales presentation, the sales process, but ultimately whatever product or service you offer. Invite them in and let them help you get to the right destination. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. So, I find this fascinating because essentially it sounds like what you're creating is an entire ecosystem that's reinforcing that is about, it is customer centric, and it is about persuasion a part of every piece of communication, which is what you wrote in this book, is analyzing every moment that the customer is being communicated with and using it to your advantage and assessing how can this be done more in our favor, which is like, fascinating in terms of turning every single touch into that. Where reading the book, I felt like, wow, I feel like Cary's got like a background in psychology or something like that. Is this just through time and tested experience plus your, legal beginnings, or have you done some personal, research into psychology? Is there anything? It was just fascinating. It felt like it had that even behind it.
Well, ironically, I do have an undergrad degree in psychology.
Oh, there you go.
Uh, uh, I became an absolute student of positive psychology uh, when Sean Aker, the Harvard professor that had the most well-attended class at Harvard called the Happiness Class, and
Mm.
wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage. Not only did I read his book, but then I got the textbook that was used to teach in class, and I obsessed over that and read all that.
Wow.
Uh, and through YPO, special opportunity I got to study emotional intelligence, and I got a 2-year teaching certificate in emotional intelligence, and that was an incredible experience. And then combined with just all my entrepreneurial journey, I would say there's no one thing. I would say it was a lot of things. Uh, but what I came to realize in with my own companies and those that I was coaching is, because the way companies often get launched founders come up with ideas, businesses are started, the founder does the selling, and then when the founder gets too busy or can't handle it, they want to hire salespeople, and then salespeople come on, and so on and so forth, and then the sales organization grows. Uh, Oftentimes, the initial sales presentation, the script, the answers to the objections, and the actual pitch deck or presentation, the slides, are handed from the founder to the sales team, and then they kind of take that as true and generally stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take a sales leader, they have a lot of on their plate, and especially in today's world, they own revenue, and oftentimes the CRO owns both sales and marketing.
Mm.
They have a lot on their plate, but with sales in particular, uh, they are responsible for interviewing and hiring and comp plans and making sure people are trained and following the process and the CRM and entering the data, making sure the database is clean, all kinds of things they're responsible for. Uh, I haven't seen organizations where somebody owns the words within the sales script
Hmm.
and the order of the words and the emphasis on each one and how to A/B test those. It's just not a seat that's filled. There's no job title that says, I own the words in the sales script. I own the words to the responses to the objections. Now, of course, sales uh, engages in that when sales leaders are trying to coach up teammates to help them do better. They'll say, what happened on the call and what was the objection and why didn't you win the business, and talk them through. But there isn't a well-defined, documented process to mine the data, the words that come out of the prospect's mouth, and leverage that to A/B test like a test pilot. Go out and gather data and A/B test to find out how to make your sales presentation more compelling and convincing and captivating so you can close more deals faster. And so uh, that's really what I found. And so that's what I do. I say, I will own that. I own that
Mm.
seat, and I can implement that process because it's not usually in companies, it's not really a project to A/B test the words in the script to make them better. And therefore, there's no owner, there's no deadline, there's no recurring focus on it. And if it isn't a project with a focus, with an owner, most often it's not going to get done. And so you have a sales team, the marketplace is changing constantly, faster than the pace of the individual company that you're working at. The marketplace is changing fast in today's world. And we're getting a lot of input, a lot of feedback, a lot of data coming from the 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 prospects, so the sales conversations, and this data can be very valuable. And so you just want a process to mine the data and make sure it's being put to good use. And so that is really what pitch before product is. Constantly A/B test the script to make it better.
That's beautiful. You are drilling down into specifics, especially when it comes to the words, the placement, the order, how they're said, and how that actually has a huge function on a human being's reception of those words. And you're making that a craft, an art, or a science as well.
Yeah. Here's let me touch on the order. Here's something that I find. Here's a strategy that people can use. I find it almost a recurring strategy. Take your number one objection. What's the number one objection? What is the number one reason your company doesn't close business today,
Mm-hmm.
based on what the prospects say? Now, that would be, I would imagine, a pretty important thing to focus on. The number one reason that customers don't buy from you today.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever that response is, that in and of itself would be a great little exercise to do. How do we make that better? Just the one, if there's one takeaway that something, listeners can do today, write out your number one objection, write out the response, and how do you make it better? Right? So what I see when you come to the script in the order of the words and the order of the slides, over time you can start to see common themes where, wow, the number one objection, maybe it's cost. It usually comes up about 20 minutes into the conversation, or 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Well, have we tested being proactive and talking about all the value that we bring to the table at that moment in time earlier in the conversation before that objection is raised, so that we can overcome the objection before they've even thought of it? That's an example of how you take the objections, the script, the frequently asked questions, and you can, with the data at your fingertips, once you have the data and you have visibility into it, you can move things around to help be more persuasive and help close deals faster.
I love that. Thank you for that example.
No
So,
problem.
weaving back to the book and our hero Sam's journey, he experienced a significant shift when his approach to entrepreneurship, when he realized the value of humility and listening. And I thought that was compelling to read. Um, you, it sounds like throughout your life you've had this. It's pretty natural, the disposition to appreciate, you know, emotional intelligence and listening, and you approach things with humility. But do you have anything to share in terms of like when this became something of a peaked awareness for you in your entrepreneurial journey, that humility and listening were so important?
Well, first of all, thank you. I don't know how great a job I do at all that, but I'm certainly listening to your questions. Uh, so uh, I don't know if I could pinpoint any specific time, but this is what I learned over time working with a lot of salespeople. Uh, I believe salespeople actually need a lot of ego, the healthy kind of ego, maybe 90% ego, because salespeople get the most common answer they get is no. And so you just need drive and optimism to keep going day in and day out with a lot of no's. But but what I really look for is maybe 90% healthy ego, 10% humility,
Mm.
because when you can have that blend of 92% healthy ego and 10% humility, you can really get the team to realize that the best sales presentation is the one we haven't invented yet. And so that then puts everyone in a frame of mind where we're going to collaborate to A/B test, to mine the data from the prospects, and day after day, week after week, month after month, we're going to improve the the persuasiveness of what we say and do, and not settle in and say, I'm already great, I close a lot of deals, therefore this is a static, a fixed, finite sales presentation, as opposed to a living, breathing thing that is meant to be improved upon.
I love that. You're elaborating on what I'm hearing is that humility, especially in this case, is really the openness to continuously learn and to realize that you haven't found perfect yet. There is never that. And especially learn from the customer.
Yeah, and I will say, if you're not closing 100%, you have room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
And Yeah, people don't close at 100%. So there's room for improvement. And so again, if you make it a project, you give it an owner, you understand that there's room for improvement, then you put focus on it, and then you go do it, and it works. No,
Okay.
nobody really would argue with me that uh, uh, hey, I don't think we need to improve the persuasiveness of our sales presentation. That's not really an important thing to do. It's just it's just that it's not a project, so they just generally don't work on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not an owner.
So, and one of your biggest suggestions then to listeners is that there should be an owner from within the team. How much of their job does this need to be, do you think? How much time needs to be spent on this?
I think it really depends on you got to meet them where they're at. You know, who's on the team, uh, what is the state of the state. There's so many factors that go into that, and so uh, how complex is the business? How big is the sales team? Uh, what's the state of the database? What's the state of the CRM? You know,
Sure.
but I would say it's important to continue to uh, optimize the persuasiveness of the presentation, the responses to the objections, even the responses to the frequently asked questions.
Mm-hmm. So, for it to at least be owned by someone. In your prior company,
Yeah,
was it
yeah.
you that owned this, or was there another team member
Oh,
that owned this?
it wasn't even formalized. It was being even the words pitch before product wasn't invented. This was more about uh, just saying to ourselves we want to close more deals. So how do we do that? And so uh, yeah, we made it part of what we did. I would say less formal. Now I realize formality helps accelerate accelerate it faster. Uh, Here's a fun little exercise I can share on frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
The answers to the frequently asked questions are most often that I see in my coaching business are, I would call them pedestrian, boring, like common, meaning uh, as if they're customer service answers. Even though we're talking about those questions being asked in the construct of a sales presentation. So, for example, let's say you have a product. Uh, how long does it take to ship? 6 weeks. Boring. True, but boring.
Okay.
Uh, uh, consulting business or a service business. How long does it take to get set up? 6 weeks. Boring. True, but boring, right? So an exercise I have my clients do is take the answers to the frequently asked questions, the most common questions you get,
Mm-hmm.
and turn them into value propositions that are persuasive that can help you close today. So, for example, maybe you're really good at delivering a product within 6 weeks and it's pretty reliable and you pretty much know when they buy, they will get their product within 6 weeks. Uh, so instead of just saying 6 weeks, why don't you say, and the great news is because we have built our operations and our processes and care about our customers and are so focused on time delivery, you will get your product within 6 weeks. And I will personally have an agent assigned to you to make sure it happens and communicates with you all the way through. You can ever ask any questions to anytime you want. You can say that, or you can just say 6 weeks. So again, the answers are accurate, but are they persuasive? and do they help you get to the goal of closing deals faster? That's the lens you're looking at it through, and that's where I would shine the spotlight. Again, it needs an owner, needs some focus, needs some timelines, and it's not that hard to improve them if you make it a to-do within the company.
Absolutely. What gets measured gets done, right?
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
going to skip ahead in my question notes and ask something that's kind of coming up to me, and I'm not going to recall now what chapter it's from, but it's the one about, because it's coming to mind with what you're saying when you hear, instead of 6 weeks, you hear this fantastic answer that shares the benefits they're going to have during that 6 week period. That chapter you wrote about when it's almost too good. And
Oh, it's too good to be
yeah,
true.
and you've perfected and you're polished and you're showing up with more than what they're asking for. It's too good to be true. So can you speak to that, like when you've done this work and you're getting so good at it, and you're starting to really put thought into each place of communication, and you get that kind of feedback from a customer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's at the tail end of all the work,
Mm,
because now what you've done is uh, I like to have my clients build a value board. What is every single value prop you bring to the table? So I'll often I'll listen to sales calls and or role play with clients, and I hear them try to overcome an objection, and they'll list, one or two or three reasons why you should work with us. And I say, okay, those are one or two or three, but your company is amazing, and you have about 20 things that you bring to the table that are valuable. That's why you have clients and they work with you. List them all out. List all 20. And then have one meeting, go over all of them and see if you can come up with 20 more.
hmm,
Listen to calls with customers, listen to calls with prospects, and listen to what resonates most deeply with them. And you'd be surprised how many great things there are that companies are delivering, but they're usually not written out in a succinct like board, a value board that lists them all in one place. And so when you can get your entire value prop not down in an elevator pitch, but out there in an entire board to draw from and pick from, and then you can combine the processes, really all three processes that I talk about in the book. Uh, then you can sometimes get to the point where the value prop is so strong, compare the value compared to the cost. You don't get the cost of objection, and then you kind of wow your customers, like, wow, this is too good to be true. It's a great moment when you can get there. I would strive to hear those magic words.
right, right. And what's your, I read it from the book, but can you share the response to that response?
Well, that's company dependent. It really is company. There's not one response, but other than thank you for saying that. Uh, this is how we operate.
Yeah.
We try to uh, under promise and over deliver, but it's going to be company specific, uh, for sure.
And I think, and what I'm speaking to especially is if there's any doubt that the customer almost has because they feel like that the polish is so succinct of the presentation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are many ways to address that. Talk to my customers.
Yes.
Talk to my customers. You'll see. I'm not saying anything that we won't deliver. This is how our company operates. Happy to give you references.
That's
So,
awesome.
uh, but you're not gonna. Most companies will not get there with. I've seen, if you can combine pitch before product as a process, you can combine sales and marketing pendulum as a process, you combine stack ranking revenue as a process, you integrate all three, you get after it and go work on it, and you have that mindset, that mentality that the best presentation is the one we haven't invented yet. And so you come to the table with humility, you come to the table with a data mindset where we're mining data to help us improve. You're on the path to potentially getting a response. This sounds too good to be true, which is great. It's great to hear it.
Yeah, that's the desired end goal. All right, so talk to me a little bit about the gatekeepers and what you share in the book in terms of the empathy and the positioning that that Sam's company or that you'd suggest in terms of this process about getting past gatekeepers.
Yeah, I think this is my experience. Because of the way companies are started and founders get out there selling first, a lot of emphasis is placed on the actual script and the actual presentation to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, I mean, this is great when sales people can actually be selling all day long to the buyer, but the reality is the vast majority of their time is not selling. The vast majority of their time is trying to get to the seller. And so in businesses where there are gatekeepers, the exact same process of writing out the script, writing out the frequently asked questions, writing out the objections, the same process can be applied to the gatekeeper script. Uh, and that's very important because you want to have your salespeople selling. And if you want them selling, they need to talk to the buyer. So I can share an experience where uh, uh, we came up with a version one of a gatekeeper script, and what we're thinking, what does what who are the gatekeepers in this particular scenario? What makes them happy? What scares them? What are their instructions from their boss about salespeople? And then how do we get around that? How do we get around it? So we really get into the motivations, the interests, the needs of the gatekeepers. And so here's an exercise. Um, Write out version one of the gatekeeper script and the objection answers or responses and the responses to the FAQ. And spend an inordinate amount of time. If your salespeople are not getting to the decision maker, you may have a gatekeeper problem. So now spend an inordinate amount of time on getting past the gatekeeper by perfecting that script. And so I've done this with interns, for example, uh, college kids on summer break, come into a room, make 70 calls a day, and we're going to sit in that room and take this short 3-line script, and we're going to make it better and better and better and better and better and better until we feel like we have maxed out the optimization and really increase the conversion on that. And that's a great project. That's just a great project to do, because if you are not if you don't come to the table with a data mindset on trying to get past the gatekeeper, now you have a bunch of individual people randomly testing things, and some people might find some things that work, but that's unique to them and it's not scalable. But if you do it as a team and you mine the data together and you share data together, you are more likely again, if it's a project with focus, you're more likely to find the secret sauce, the words, the order of the words, the pregnant pause,
Hmm.
all the things that will get you to the decision maker faster.
I love that. You're getting to a little bit of the culture that in the book Sam builds and that you're suggesting can be built. And it's this idea, the phrase you use in the book, and you use a lot of awesome phrases that refer to this, but say it back better is one of them, where it becomes this cultural team mission to can you do it better than I can? Can you do it better than I can? Can you do it better than I can? How can we optimize this?
Well, and I mean something a little bit different. So
Okay.
here, a lot of companies, I call this micro training.
Okay.
Say it back better is really a process of micro training. So a lot of companies have a full big on training for their sales team when they start. They go through a training and then they go and start their sales job after training. And they have a boss and they get some feedback from their boss. But let's just take that number one objection, the
Hmm.
most common objection, the biggest reason you don't win business today. And so you have your objection. You say it to me. I can practice it. We're in a role play. I can say it back better to you, and then you can try to say it back better to me. And we go round robin a couple times.
Hmm.
Let's say I'm your manager, and I'll say it back better, and we role play it. Uh, uh, the price is too high, but here's the value. The price is too high. Here's the value. The price is too high. Here's the value, and you keep adding more and more value props per that uh, value board that we talked about until you get it really strong, really strong. Then I'd say to the sales rep, okay, you've said it back better to me. Now write it out to me in an email and go grab an image, like from Google Images or something. Just grab an image that this value prop represents in your mind. And so now we've repeated it 3 or 4 or 5 times. They've written it to me and they've connected imagery to it. And then the next time they get on a call, it's a very high likelihood they will actually say it back better to the prospect. Just
I
that
see.
one line,
Hmm.
just the one line. And so, but if the one line happens to be the number one reason your company's not winning business, that's a pretty important line to get right.
Yes.
And so it's a simple methodology to help the sales reps remember how to say the optimized version of that response to that objection.
And to be able to say it in so many different ways that it's a normal flowing conversation. It's adaptable.
Once they practiced it enough, and now they should remember it. Once you run them through that little process, most will remember. They're not going to fall back to what they used to say.
Mm. Something I want to circle back to is objections. I
Okay.
love what you're bringing in the book about, Sam's example, and that there was a cultural shift where they began feeling excited about hearing objections. And, the very important point that the hidden objections are always far more damaging than spoken objections. And there was this kind of like hunger for let's hear another and let's optimize around it. Can you just speak to that? I think that that's fascinating and it's really important to this process.
Yeah. So when I do, when we can talk about the sales and marketing pendulum and stack ranking revenue, this will all come together. But when you implement all three, uh, what and you really optimized the sales pitch, you really have a focus on what are the objections, and now we've made them better. What are the frequently asked questions? Now we've made them better. You you pretty much know with 90-degree certainty what your universe objections and questions will be, and you've already optimized them, and you've battle tested them with the marketplace so that they work and they're better. So now, the reps will get to a point where the objection, just the first few words of the objection come out, and they already know what the objection is going to be, and they already have this amazing response, and they can't wait to finish it. They can't wait till the prospect finishes the objection so they can say, "I'm so glad you asked that." It's uh, this is one of the things our clients love about us the most, and boom, into the response, and the team can get there. Whereas right now they're like, "Oh no, I'm going to lose this deal." This reminds me when I talk about pitch before product. Uh, what's less expensive, changing the words in the presentation, or when you get an objection, your price is too high? I guess you have a couple options. You can lose the customer. You can drop your price, or you can get a lot more persuasive in what you say back to them. The least expensive thing, the most profitable thing, is just change the words and max that out. I'm not saying it's going to work all the time, but if it's not a project and it's not a focus, you're more likely to lose the customer and drop the price than you will if you don't even have a project that's live that's saying we're going to optimize the words and the images that we say to the prospect and that we show to the prospect. We've heard the word product market fit all the time. I would phrase this as content market fit. What are the words and images that you have to say to the buyer to get them to buy? And so many teams are focused on product market fit, and this is content market fit.
That's really compelling. And I think that that's part of why when I was reading this book, I was like, does Cary have a background in psychology? Being able to get so into this process and realize we need to optimize the entire, ecosystem of sales, marketing, the entire company, to enable content market fit. I mean, like that's mastery of psychology on some level.
Well, I would also say thank you, but I would say not every company has really high margins, and not every company has the opportunity to uh, drop the price and still be profitable. And so when you're backed in a corner, this is a great option. Go try to convince them otherwise.
Right. That's awesome. The third option that
At
you might
least
not be
try,
seeing.
not with one person, but with the team in a project.
Did this happen for you where the feeling like in any of the companies that you've run backed in a corner, we can't change this, we can't change that, but we can change our words? Do you have a story behind it?
Many times, I would say many times over, uh, where, yeah, in early days of startup, we don't have runway. We have to close deals faster. So we have to increase our conversion rate. So how do we do that on a limited budget? Get more persuasive. I mean, it's not some it's not like I studied psychology and came up with that. It was more I was backed into a corner and we had to close deals faster. So we had limited budget. What are we going to do? We can't drop the price. We have to close. We have to just win more business. So, uh, I don't know when we're getting there in this conversation, but for sure, the other two pillars uh, of the sales and marketing pendulum and stack ranking revenue have tremendous accelerated accelerants to make this happen.
Let's go
Uh,
there.
okay,
Yes.
so let's let's start with stack ranking revenue.
Okay.
And so uh, what this really means is, hey, team, let's work on the things that will generate the most money in the shortest period of time first before working on other things. And so now that sounds like common sense, right? Of course. Why wouldn't people do that? Of course, that's the good intent of everyone, but that's just not reality. Uh, Many people are super overwhelmed with a massive workload, and I hear this a lot. I come to work, I bury out of my inbox for 2 hours, and then it can finally, get to the things I need to work on.
Mm.
Like, wait, you go to work and work on for 2 hours on things you don't need to work on, so you can get to the things you need to work on. Uh, and then there are the other two camps. This is human behavior. People generally like to work on the things they're good at and work on the things that they like and work on the things that they're good at before working on things they don't like and are not good at, or don't like them because they're not good at them, or are not good at them because they don't like them. And so you have teams working on things that they like and procrastinating things on things they don't like, having no relationship to the revenue and the profit of the company. I mean, they may have a connection, but it's very unlikely without a system that everyone every day will be have the right priorities of working on things that will generate the most revenue in the shortest period of time first before working on other things, because that's just not systems that are in place, and that's not how people work. So what I like to do is I have project management software to be distinguished from the CRM, customer relationship management software. Project management software is, what are all the things we're going to do in sales and marketing? Not a one-on-one engagement with the customer. What are the things that we're going to do to change the trajectory of our growth rate? And we're going to put those down in goals that are smart. They are time bound, they are specific, and they are measurable. And then what are all the tasks that we have to get done to make sure we can accomplish that goal? And every task is documented in the platform as time bound, specific, and measurable. And let me break up those three things. Time bound is very obvious. You put a deadline to it. And I freely tell people, put any deadline you want. I don't want to create panic in the organization. You pick your own deadline. You know what your work cadence is. Make it specific, no acronyms. Make it abundantly clear. Write very clearly so that everyone and anyone on the project in the company would know exactly what you're working on. That's the task is very, very specific. Measurable means high revenue, medium revenue, or low revenue. And so by creating a very specific task, with abundant clarity, you're telling the team, this is exactly what I'm working on. By picking a deadline, you're just saying, this is exactly when it's going to be done by.
Hmm.
And by giving a revenue rank, let's say you have 9 tasks, 3 are ranked high revenue, 3 are ranked medium revenue, and 3 are ranked low. It's kind of a carrot and a stick exercise, where if you come to work and you see you have 9 things to do, you see 3 of them are high revenue, 3 are medium revenue, and 3 are low revenue. Most people will try to work on the high revenue things first. It's just people don't, we all have meetings at work and we all come up with ideas like, oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. You do that. Okay, great. I'll do this. You do that. And then people leave. And 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, hey, do you remember that thing we talked about at the meeting that I sent you the email about? Like, what's happening with that? And now you have meetings about whether the things you decided you were going to work on, are they getting done? When it's in the software platform, And it's in this format. It tells people, it helps them think, these are the things I'm going to work on in the order. And if you're not going to meet a deadline, change the deadline, and that communicates it out to everyone involved. And you don't need a meeting. You just know I'm behind. This is why I'm behind. And there's a dependency from another department or what have you. And so uh, this wipes away meeting after meeting after meeting, create tremendous efficiency in the organization because you are communicating with everyone exactly what you're working on, when it's going to be done by, and the significance of it. Not to be confused with priority. Deadline is priority. I could have a very high revenue, uh, high priority. Like this client wants to pay us today. Can somebody get the invoice out? I could have a high priority, low revenue task. The boss needs me to send this email out. It's not even to a client, it's to a friend. Okay, I need to do it today. It's fine. High priority, low revenue. Fine. It's part of doing business. A lot of that happens. But generally speaking, if you can get the team all thinking with the high revenue mindset, all working on things that generate more revenue in a shorter period of time first before other things, generally speaking, you're going to create more revenue faster. And I do have an experience where when yeah, any CEO gets a lot of questions from their team, and a lot of problems come walking in the door, so to speak. A lot of opportunities come walking in the door, and so uh, by implementing a culture of SMART goals, you're also teaching the employees to think about what their activities are through the lens of revenue and profit. And when this helps them grow in their career. And so I noticed when I was able to, it doesn't come overnight. People don't walk out of a meeting, say, I'm going to work on that one task. I'm going to get it done by this date because it's a high revenue task. Like people don't talk that way. People don't write that way. So it takes some work to get there. But when people can really get there, uh, I would get a barrage of questions coming my way. It, uh, hey, Cary, should we do A or B? Cary, I just got this amazing opportunity. What do you think? Should we do it? Cary, I've got this incredible problem. Uh, Can you help me solve it? I don't know what to do. What should we do? So when we successfully got to a point where people can think in terms of revenue implication, nobody would come running into my office saying, "Oh my gosh, Cary, I have this incredibly low revenue problem. We have to jump on it immediately." Right? No, they really so as the phrase goes, let small fires burn.
Mm.
And employees are smart, and the employees are smart enough to figure this out. If it's a low revenue issue, why would I go running into the CEO's office? Who cares? Or kick the can down the road. We have bigger fish to fry, so to speak. And employees are smart. They can figure this stuff out as long as they're given a methodology, a framework, a process to run it through. And so when you go back and you think of pitch before product, working on the script, working on the value board, working on the frequently asked questions, working on overcoming objections, working on micro training, working on imagery to be more compelling and convincing and captivating. When you start talking about these things, all kinds of new ideas, all kinds of innovation comes up. Oh wow! I'd like to say the best idea is oftentimes the idea from the idea,
Hmm.
and so now you have a lot of new ideas, and they turn into SMART goals and SMART tasks that are stack ranked, and now all kinds of new things are getting done in the company that weren't getting done before, and that's how you see progress and growth. And every one of those things that we talked about, every one of those to-dos that we talked about in pitch before product can be put in a stack rank revenue format. And that helps everyone decide what to do in what order.
It's brilliant. Simple, obvious, not being done
Uh,
everywhere.
right. So just like I say with pitch before product, nobody really debates me saying, I don't really think we need to improve our sales presentation.
Hmm.
With stack ranking revenue, nobody debates me saying, I don't know why we'd work on the high revenue things before the low revenue things. No, I mean, obviously nobody says it. It's just hard to execute. It's hard to execute all of it. But with
Why?
focus, well, um, because there's no owner. That's the thing. In our normal org charts, there's no owner of the script. That's not somebody's job, script owner.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Generally speaking, yeah, the leaders of each department are responsible to make sure their team members are working on the right things in the right order. But without nobody has time to be auditing everyone's daily work in order of revenue ranking. There just isn't time. And so,
Mm-hmm.
in the absence of implementing a process and teaching people how to do it and letting them do it, like there's no time. There's just no time. You can't be running around to every single person and every employee and every day. Tell me, tell me exactly what you're going to work on and what order by revenue rank today, and meeting with everyone. You can't do it. And also, that's not a job title. That's the other thing. It's just not a job title. The person that determines the order in which every employee will do each task ranked by revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that's the seat I'm taking. I'm taking the seat of owner of the script. I'm taking the seat of owner of the revenue ranking in the process and teaching people how to do it and measuring compliance with it. Because again, these are not full-time roles that companies hire for.
Right. But what you're saying is essentially you put that process in there, you help create the mindset shift. Sure, it might not be immediate, but it's the process is the training towards orienting the team to reflect what am I doing through revenue impact. And when
Yeah,
that becomes the process that's being lived, the well-oiled machine, the impact of the company, the revenue possibilities.
yeah,
It all,
and it's a behavior change,
yes.
documenting what you're doing in smart format. That's a behavior change. It creates a lot of visibility, a high degree of accountability. Maybe not for everyone, but not everyone wants to live in a deadline-driven organization with high visibility in what they're working on.
Hmm.
But I'd say most companies want those kinds of employees.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Those are the companies that tend to grow.
Right. Real quick before I forget to ask, can you mention the software that you're using for
I use Basecamp. I
okay.
use Basecamp. There's tons of project management software out there. I use
Right.
Basecamp.
Okay. Thank you.
Interestingly enough, because what I consider it, first of all, it's been around a very long time. It 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 has what I would consider, I don't know if Basecamp would say this, but uh, some very few features. It has just enough features to be perfect in my mind for what I use it for. Not too many features where teams go down a rabbit hole and want to try to use 27 different features. I'm always if I can't get compliance on one feature, I don't want to move to number two. If I can't get the team to improve the response to the number one objection, I'm not going to move to the number two. If we can't finish one task, we're not going to get after the second task. And so I use it for its simplicity. Because when you get 100% compliance, it's way better than having tons of other bells and whistles. That's why I use it. But I know people are very passionate about their other project management software platforms.
No, absolutely.
I find it works really well for what I do.
That's wonderful, especially given how precise you are able to be and what you're sharing about the stack ranked revenue system. And so I just wanted to know what system you're using that backs that up. So thank you for mentioning that. Do you want to now shift into the sales and marketing pendulum?
Sure. So I learned early on that sales teams behave very differently than marketing teams. They're completely different people with different skill sets, different mindsets. And in most companies, they have different leaders running the departments. And there is not, in most cases where I've seen, an integration where they act as if they're one department. Yet, the marketing people might debate me on this, but they really only have one goal, and that's to close deals. That's how the company generates revenue. That's how the company makes payroll. So while a marketer may say, my job is to drive leads or clicks or get content out there, the ultimate goal is close deals. And so they do, as employees of the company, share a common vision of close deals. And so at a higher level, they share it, but there often are not systems where they're mining data from one another and sharing it to elevate the game of both departments. And so I first noticed, I grew up coming out of law, I grew up with no expertise in sales and marketing. I had to learn from my employees. And that's ultimately kind of how I think I became a coach. Marketing is a very technical role. Like you need technical expertise to be great at it. And so I was never going to have more technical expertise than our SEO person who worked full time and has been in SEO for 10 years. But I could certainly get out of the way where they're great and coach them up where they need help, maybe on the people or process side of the business. The other thing about marketers, we're just data geeks. Like we love A/B testing, green, blue, this word, that word. Let's get 100 clicks, and we have a statistically significant sample size, and now we know which one is the winner, and now we can A/B test again. And so it's inherent in the culture of the marketers that we're going to gather data and we're going to test and iterate. Whereas the sales team is very much like I described before, very much the boss handed me the sales presentation. The boss told me what to say, and now I'm going to say it, even though that sales presentation is 2 years old. We haven't changed a thing since, regardless what the market feedback is. And sales teams generally don't come to the table with an A/B testing mindset. That they're just trying to learn all the systems and the script and the presentation and trying to memorize it. They're not really saying en masse, let me go out and data mine words out of the mouth of the prospect so that I can take it back and look for trends and themes and move all the words around in the sales script. That's generally not what they're doing. So when a process like pitch before product can be implemented with that 90% ego and that 10% humility, and so now you have a process of agility, a process of data mining and agility within the sales organization, that the best presentation is the one we haven't invented yet. if you do that first and you stack rank revenue, so everyone's working on these really important projects and you're mining data, the data being the words that come out of the prospect's mouth, you have the opportunity, now that you have an agile system, take the data, the most salient, important words and combination of words that resonate most deeply with the prospect, share them with marketing. Take the high performing top of funnel marketing campaigns, whether it's SEO or PPC or social media or thought leadership, what have you, whatever campaigns are driving leads, take that data and share it with sales. And so that's what I call the sales and marketing pendulum, where sales is sharing data with marketing, marketing is sharing data with sales. And ultimately what that does, while there are going to be separate departments for sure, the data sharing helps the marketing department create more compelling lead generation, and it helps the sales team say the right words to the right prospect at the right time. And so we often say in Holy Grail, the Holy Grail of marketing is to get the right message in front of the right customer at the right time. In sales, we regurgitate the same presentation our boss gave us 2 years ago. So I'll give you an example. I was working with a company. They were getting after the consumer electronics vertical, and were trying to land a lot of the business in let's say that was in competition or closely related with the category of Ring doorbell. And so we had the prospect on, and we're listening, and one of the greatest concerns is that we really need to make sure our technical experts can convince, be persuasive and compelling, convince the homeowner to troubleshoot on their own and let us walk them through the fix, because it's most certainly the battery or something like that. I don't know. Because we can't roll the trucks. And we're like, what does roll the trucks mean? It means we literally have to send one or two people out in a truck to a home to literally change a battery. We'll never be able to recoup our costs on that customer. We'll be upside down forever. So we have to not let that happen. We need to be, exact, precise, and compelling and persuasive. So what do? We take those magic words that resonated. We caught, we had our antenna up saying, like, we're always listening. What are the things that matter most? And every once in a while you hear the pop. Like, okay, so we take that over to marketing and say, run top of funnel campaigns that say, don't roll the trucks. Now, that means absolutely nothing to you and me, right? We wouldn't even see that ad. We'd never click on that ad. But boy, does it mean everything to those buyers. You've heard the phrase like, wow, now you're speaking my language, right? Yeah, we are speaking your language because we're literally speaking your language. We're taking your words and turning them into top of funnel marketing campaigns. Your words. We know they'll resonate with you because they're your words. So what does that do? That increases the likelihood of driving more leads, because you're taking the words out of the prospect's mouth and using them in your campaigns, instead of the marketing team just sitting around coming up with ideas. Why don't we say this? Or why don't we say that? Then you flip it around and say, okay, of all the other things we're testing, what are the top of funnel campaigns? What are the words and images throughout all the channels, SEO, PPC, social, email marketing, content marketing? What's everyone clicking? What are the actual words they're clicking that drive them to fill out a lead form, say, I want to talk to somebody? Now, there are many companies that just hand the lead over, pass it out to the rep, and say, "You got a lead. Reach out, see if you can get a meeting." Another way to do it would be to find out the source of the lead and the words that they clicked on. And maybe it's a combination of 3 words that were in SEO or in some Google ads or something like that. And now that you have an agile system, the sales team knows the best presentation is the one they haven't invented yet. Take those words, and not in a creepy way, but maybe in the follow-up email to set up your Zoom call or Google Meet or Teams Meet, whatever. Maybe you drop a little of that language in, and maybe instead of the standard sales deck, maybe you inject those words on slide 2 now and make that slide 2. So the prospect is thinking, wow, these people really get me. They really understand me right out of the gate. And that's the sales and marketing pendulum.
It supports having a unified customer journey.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, why again? So I've talked about this before. Nobody really says to me, I don't think sales and marketing should share data. But like, who owns that? Who owns that? No, it's not like a full-time job.
Mm.
So who owns it? And so that's where if you have a process and it's a recurring kind of way that the company operates, that sales is always looking for key moments to share with marketing, and marketing is always looking for key data points to share with sales. That's how lead gen increases, and salespeople connect with the prospects and have a more compelling presentation.
With each of these 3 methodology areas and sections of the book, I feel like you've been able to find gaps in how our culture is just structuring companies, and realizing like the opportunities that are being missed because of this way that we're just going about things and calling normal and not questioning.
Yeah, right. The organizational structure of companies, it's like 3 gaps that exactly. I've noticed these 3 gaps that no one person owns.
Yes.
And therefore, this is why these projects don't get done, because nobody owns it. And even though nobody disagrees that they're the right thing to do, just it's hard to get an owner for it.
But you're
Uh,
also, like, for things like stack ranked revenue, you've considered the psychology of why did we get into this situation. It's because people are thinking about what they prefer to do and what they like to do. And, this is the triage that we naturally start from to choose what we're going to tackle next. You're thinking about that psychology, and then you're also thinking about, but why this isn't achieving the end goal. And you're bringing psychology there. You're bringing psychology into the fact that, let's think about how the customer is receiving this and what are they saying. And you're weaving all of this into places it wasn't, or maybe isn't most of the time in companies. You're
yeah,
thinking about
that's
it, not just like what's going on the inside and what's going on the outside for the customer and for revenue.
that's what I've noticed. Is a lot from my observations and the companies I've been involved in, and in my client companies. Their gaps, but
Yeah.
common sense opportunities. That's what I said, because nobody really debates that they're the right thing to do. But like many things, the idea and the execution are harder. But that's why I say, what, start. Here's one takeaway. Just start today. List the number 1 objection and the number 1 response. Make it a project. See if you can improve it. That's something any team should be able to execute.
That's a good place to start. I like how at the end of the book, there's, that's not my job, the chapter 15. what happened really in the story of Sam, but what you're sharing can happen in companies. Any company, if you get these three methodologies swimming together, is this team unity and this customer centric culture.
Yeah, so there are two things that I see uh, most often.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if I say to marketing people, your job is to close deals, they kind of freak out on me. Like, what? I run social media. What are you talking about? And then and so when there's a common vision and mission, okay, it's easy to explain, and it's not like anyone really digs in their heels and fights on it. It's just why the team should collaborate and communicate. Like, hey, marketer, maybe jump on a sales call or two just to hear what happens. Uh, hey, sales, uh, why don't you get maybe once a month, see what marketing's up to, get get a marketing overview. Maybe there's something happening in the market while you're talking to customers that might be relevant. So the other thing is when I'm working on smart goals and stack ranking revenue, uh, because I shared that experience, like people go into meetings, everyone comes out with you know action items. Sometimes it's not exactly clear who's doing what, when it's going to be done by, what the revenue implication is, or there's all with all good intent. Sometimes there's joint ownership of tasks, and when there's joint ownership, it's not necessarily who's going to do the work, but when there's joint ownership, there can be can be a situation where people just assume the other person's handling it. And so, it's not so much as they're saying that's not my job. It's like more that this is a way to decrease the likelihood of miscommunication, which happens all the time. And so, uh, by by giving every task an owner, you are basically saying that is my job, and you're also saying the reverse. That's not my job. I don't own that project. So it's abundantly clear which employee and which team member is going to do which task on which date, and and then which ones are actually not responsible for that. It goes back to accountability and ownership, and so it
Right.
really does help with communication. And so if somebody's behind on something, let's say I see a deadline approaching, uh, and I see no activity on the task, I can say, hey, I see that deadline is approaching. Do you need any help with this, or do you need to change the due date? And it's one person. You know exactly who has ownership of that. And it's just creating efficiencies through clarity of communication.
Exactly. And also weaving in with that clarity the tasks that fall under each person. In the book was sharing like how, being able to demonstrate how each role actually follows back to revenue. And yes, some
Absolutely.
of them are indirect, if you're talking about like HR, for example, or, recruiting and things like that. But being able to weave that into the culture and show how everybody's role and everybody's tasks are following back up to this core goal that the company is putting at its center.
Yeah, and that's a
Revenue.
question I get a lot. When I get a question, well, what if I'm not a revenue producer like HR or IT? Uh, Everything has a revenue implication.
Yes.
Uh, hey, IT, if our servers get overloaded and our site goes down, that has revenue implication. That would be a high revenue project. Make sure our site doesn't go down. So, uh, yeah, hire this very important person, high revenue. Uh, Yes, they all can have a revenue implication, even if it's not an actual traditional revenue generator role.
Absolutely. I loved what you mentioned in chapter 16. Invert the org chart and put the customer at the top. It's like, yeah. And leave a seat
Yeah,
at the table for the customer, for the future customer, not just the present customer, but the future customer. I loved that. So did you do that at your prior
I
companies?
I I, I did. I did. I actually inverted the org chart, put myself at the bottom. I believe in servant leadership. My job is to help lift them up, and like I said, get out of the way where they're great, uh, coach them on up where they need help. But we all serve the customer, and it changes the conversation when you say, uh, "What do we want to do?" versus "What does the customer want?" I see this in every department. What is best for the customer? And so that's just a tangible example. Okay, I report to my executive team. My executive team reports to their managers. The managers report to the next level of people, and everyone reports to the customer. That's the boss. Let's not get it wrong by doing it upside down.
Hmm.
There's only one person that pays the bills. That's the customer.
Again, so simple, so right there in front of our face. And the large majority of companies are not doing that. They have the opposite, you know, that top down.
It just helps paint the picture. And when I say, uh, when I say, leave a chair in that brainstorm session for the future customer, because it goes back to pitch before product, and it goes back to just the ways that companies are formed and the way they grow. So founders start companies, and they build products and services, and they go to market, and they're born a certain way, and it's the internal team that's brainstorming all these things, and they keep brainstorming and having meetings and coming up with ideas and doing things, and every once in a while it's good just to have a visual representation. What would the customer
Mm.
say?
You're
Because they don't have the actual voice in that meeting. You can't really call them into the meeting, but it would be great if they were there, because it would save everyone a lot of time and money if the customer could be in the meeting and say, "That's absurd. I don't want that. Why are you building that?"
that's yeah. You're engineering empathy into your companies, into the this methodology engineers empathy for the customer into the company.
Well, I haven't heard it that way, but I suppose so. We want to hear their voice, uh, and everyone does. It's just, again, uh, the processes aren't always there to to help people in these meetings remember that everyone serves the customer. So these are just little, I would say, things that can help remind teams to to remember who pays the bills.
Yeah. And then they're not so little though if they, translate into behavior change across the company, mindset
Right.
shifts.
And actual change in decisions.
Exactly. And looking at different sets of information for those decisions even, you know,
Absolutely.
the customer's data.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're coming up to the conclusion of our interview. So you are available, yes, to help companies out there transform into their version of Sam's company.
Yeah. Uh, I not I need not everyone's the right fit. I need to make sure I can help them. Uh,
And what is the
so,
right fit and not the right fit for you?
well, I need to understand where they're at and, what their current situation is and what their challenges are and what their opportunities are. And if I can assess that, sometimes there are external factors, sometimes there are other organizational factors that would just simply make it impossible to implement the strategies. And if so, then it's not value added and it's not something I would take on. Uh,
Okay.
but 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 I would certainly if be open to any conversation, and if it's not a fit, I could certainly coach them on what to do on their own. And I do have a fair amount of those conversations. I will say, uh, okay, you're not ready for me. Start with this. Start with this. And so,
And you've given us a bunch of those places we can start in this conversation. But
yes.
what would that company look like who is likely ready and able to partner with you? Like, what
Oh,
are
they
some
know. Oh, they certainly know.
they will
Meaning,
know.
uh, oh, they know. Sales aren't what they expect them to be. They don't know why. They think it's their people, but they're not sure.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, they think it's the marketplace, and they don't know how to fix it. I could go on and on. There are hundreds of reasons that companies are feeling pain. Uh, yeah, our sales declined for the first year in a long time, but but we don't know why.
Hmm.
Uh, and so usually I'm just diving in. We're figuring out what happened, and then we're fixing it. And by implementing these three processes, it's a fact finding mission. We're rolling up our sleeves and saying, literally down to the nitty gritty of what do you say? Like, tell me exactly what you say. Tell me what they say, or I'll listen to a sales recording, or I'll read a transcript, or I'll look at their pitch deck, or I'll see what their marketing systems are. I'll see how they get things done. And these are all things. If they're unbendable and they're not going to be, some teams are not coachable, and therefore it's not going to be a fit. And so I need to assess them.
You want that openness to continuous learning, that 10% humility.
Yeah, I can assess it really quickly in a just a exploratory call with the leader.
Great. And your email is at the end of the book.
Yes, it is.
It is. Great. And so, anything as we conclude that you want listeners to know, or anything else about the book that you want to highlight, the methodologies?
Well, I think one interesting thing is that it's a 52-minute read, and so you could read it at lunch. And I'd say um, any kind of speaking engagement or workshop I ever do, I always say my goal is that you walk away from this meeting with a takeaway that you can put into action today in your company. And so I think I have found in my experience, taking baby steps, taking one action item today is better than thinking of 10 ideas and deciding which one to act on. A lot of people think about a lot of ideas, but this is about execution. Uh, and so uh, it would uh, for those people that say, why do today what we can do tomorrow? That's just a joke, but
Those are the ones you
I,
would be working with.
uh, I'd say this maybe, hopefully I'm inspiring them to just do it today.
Yeah, I think so. And I wanted to just circle back to that question. You mentioned this about the book. It's 52-minute read. It is a skinny. It's a different kind of skinny, being a leadership fable. But why did you choose to write a skinny outside of the fact that you're a huge supporter of Dan and Ben Heyert's? But tell me a little more about why that this format of a book is appealing.
Uh, well, I don't think that many people care about what I ate for breakfast when I was 5 years old. It's not my life story. It's just a couple tangible take home value action items that people can implement without dedicating weeks and weeks and weeks of time and investing in the read. Literally, you could read it on your lunch break and in the same day while at work, literally implement that afternoon. That's the beauty of a skinny.
So I'm going to close just with an appreciation for you, because even in the writing of this book, you are demonstrating empathy. Like, how many places and points throughout these methodologies, your book, your personal story, does empathy come up as a theme? And even just thinking about why you're writing a short form book, why you wrote it the way you did, you want them to be able to read it and implement it easily, to be able to digest it and put it into use. And so that's, again, um, the thinking about them is right there at the forefront. So it's really cool.
Uh, Thank you. I appreciate it. And I thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Yes. It's good to see you again, Cary.
Likewise, likewise. Swim on.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you.
Okay. Are we good to go?
Yeah, we are.